So I'm here at the European Climate Change Adaptation Conference speaking to Simona Castaldi, who is a professor at the University of Campania, Luigi Vanvitelli. And she's an expert on climate change, food systems, soil ecology, and many, many other related topics. Simona, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for the invitation.
Right. So your work has highlighted methane as the second most important greenhouse gas after CO2.
Yes.
What are the challenges in limiting methane emissions?
Okay, the methane is a very complex gas because it has many, many sources. Some are natural and some are anthropic. In relation to my work in particular, what I might highlight is the elevated number of animals that are ruminants that we basically breed for food. So this for sure is a significant number. This relates to mostly to the last years where this number has been increasing. But one thing we can do is to moderate the amount of meat that we tend to eat in our diets. So this could somehow reduce this source. This source is part of the budget. The impact that this reduction of consumption of meat might have on methane is relevant, but also would bring with it also other positive aspects. For example, as animals need land to produce the feed, a lot of land to produce the feed, this might also bring to less methane coming from, for example, deforestation with fires, and in general would also reduce the other greenhouse gases like CO2 or N2O that are correlated to agriculture and to the crops that we produce to basically produce the feed for the animals. So this could be a good first step. But of course, as I said, there is a very complex combination of sources for methane. So also, of course, cutting fossil fuel is another source of methane that we could, for example, reduce. And then, of course, there are a lot of elements that are related to industrial processes, but also to cultivation of rice, for example. So we have to find a better way to optimize the kind of agriculture that we do.
Mm-hmm. All right, fascinating. So you're also focused on desertification, and you're working as part of the Desert Adapt project.
Yeah.
And the Mediterranean is obviously a hotspot for
yes.
climate change, with several areas at risk of desertification. What needs to change, or what needs to happen to halt or reverse that trend?
The real issue is that the Mediterranean is and will be a hotspot for climate change. So, if we are not able at a world level to stop or to reduce the growth of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, for sure, as we are all already seeing now, we will get into this increase of temperature and this decrease in rain. So the only thing that we can do, apart from getting engaged into mitigating the emission greenhouse gases, is to start thinking in adaptation terms. So we know that the climate will change. So we need to change our attitude towards what we do, also in terms of preparing for this change in a smart way, and to practice adaptation policies and adaptation strategies. That is something that we are not really doing very well at the moment. So we are basically under the effect of climate change, and we really needed to put in place strategies to avoid the worst. This is true for cities, as we are talking about in this arena, but also about agriculture. So agriculture really needs adaptation plans. Otherwise, it will be very, very difficult to make agriculture in the Mediterranean in the near future.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and which are the strategies or interventions that are proving or could prove most effective to address desertification and loss of biodiversity?
Yeah, so adaptation strategies mostly are based on strengthening the ecosystems and in particular increasing soil health and greening. Greening meaning the amount of vegetation that is in an area. So in changing a little bit the paradigm of the kind of agriculture that we are used to do, no? We are used to do monoculture, the grazing goes into this Mediterranean country down to the end till, for example, the soil is bare and nothing remains till the next season. So what we really need to do is to protect the land and revert land degradation is to apply all the land management that can increase the amount of vegetation that we have in the site, cover of the soil, residues that go back, reduce the intensification, increase any kind of agroecology principle that we could apply, because this creates a healthier ecosystem. And only by being healthier, the ecosystem can be more resilient to the harsh condition of the climate change, because those are going to occur. So by increasing the carbon and the vegetation, all the rest comes together. So increase also biodiversity, water retention, all the things that are good for productivity, biodiversity, also human economy and social business, basically.
Yeah, so interesting that you mentioned humans, because obviously any climate mitigation or climate adaptation effort has to take into account the human factor as well, if it's going to be successful. So I know part of the Desert Adapt project is looking at ways to provide new income streams or alternative income streams for local farmers. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So as for the Desert Adapt, we were working in areas that are in the south of the Mediterranean, and they are rural areas where you have small municipalities, farmers that work in very difficult conditions because the land has a lot of problems, climate is extreme, heat waves, and often the soil is degraded. So there, what we work with them to do this, basically to emphasize all the resources that they already have in-house. So the good part of it. So which plants do they have that are adapted, for example, to the local condition and that are a source of income that could be used that at the moment are not used. So rather than fixing only on one source of income that is most common, to again put emphasis on growing these plants that are most adapted as alternative sources or in integrated sources of economic income. Or redo things differently from the way they are doing, in a way that they can be more agroecological. They can save resources, spend less, have the plants that survive more. But the most important thing is the co-creation. So it is to work with them to see what they need and how the people can be involved in doing what we are saying. So in valorizing the resources that they already have. This because whatever they do, it must not be an economic burden for them because money is not there. Nobody is going to give them money. So they need simply to rearrange things to make it work and have an economic income from whatever is good from what they already have. So that was basically the basic idea that we put it in place. So every place was different. So I could make many examples, but they are all one different from another. And I don't know if maybe you want some?
Could you give us one or two examples?
Yeah, for example, in Spain, they have, after fires that are very common, they have a lot of this aromatic cistus that grows and that normally is natural, grows and gets destroyed with machines in a very heavy way. So this destruction removes the plants, the plants we wanted, and also it disturbs the soil and doesn't cost some money and doesn't really give anything. So we work with the municipalities so that they could employ the people that is working there. Sometimes they have some money to be allocated for the people to collect these plants that instead are an incredible source, economic source for the oils that they contain that are used in cosmetics. So they can make an arrangement with the cosmetic producer in the area for the oil extraction. They can collect, reduce the biomass without being destructive, but just reduce the biomass year through the year and use the leaves to make a production of something that is really an economic value. So this gives to the locals some income and then protect the environment. Or they could rearrange the area that they already have to create, for example, spots that are spots of biodiversity. They have many beautiful things to arrange them in a way that they show to tourism what they do, and they could pick up places where people can pick up their own food or their own nuts or things, and create this as part of the experience. So to observe animals, to pick up their own food, to make trekking tracks, and maybe these little villages or these little commons that didn't have idea that they could work on this, valorizing what they have. But there could be many, many others examples like we do, yes.
That's a fantastic example. It's really nice to sort of see you working with, what's already there and what people can take advantage of. So I know you're also an expert on food systems. Tell me a bit about the role of food system reform in combating climate change and also adapting.
Yeah, basically, the idea of food system is based on two pillars. The first pillar is to move towards a healthier and more sustainable system. And in this case, what is meant is really rebalance the way we eat and what we eat. As I said before, connecting to the methane question, we really consume, on average, especially in Europe, for example, but also in America, we consume a lot of meat, more meat than we need, and we consume not so much of fruit and vegetables and, for example, whole grains and other things that for our health, for cancer, for cardiovascular diseases and other things would be really, really relevant. And today we are seeing that, for example, even young people is starting to be affected very early by cancer to many organs, pancreas, liver, and so on. So indeed, there is a better way to eat, but everybody, not only the people that can afford to be smarter in a way they make their shopping, so for everybody. And that is the first pillar. The second pillar is not only what you eat, but how you produce it. So indeed, our production system should be more towards agroecology, as we were saying before, so something more sustainable with less inputs. And both these things would reduce combined the greenhouse gas emissions, so mitigation, and they also most probably would increase, especially the agroecological part, the carbon in the system, in the plants, in the soil, and this would be the part where we do again, mitigation by carbon sequestration. So if we move towards this idea that the European community is sponsorizing indeed, we could be more healthy and have a more sustainable environment and tackle climate changes at the same time.
All right, that sounds like a great goal to aim for. So, final question, given that climate change is accelerating, what do you see as the most important areas for research in the coming years?
But for sure, technologies can help a lot. So all the technologies that can provide green energy, which is more than 80% of the emissions are mainly coming from fossil fuel. So this could be applied everywhere. Another thing that I think is really relevant is anything that is related to taking care of our ecosystems, so both forests and agricultural systems, because with the climate change comes fire. We have seen what is happening in Canada now with fires, with the plume that is coming to Europe.
Yeah.
And so you can do whatever you want and make the best plan, and then fires come and destroys everything in a moment. So to have plans to manage the forest, to defend the forest from fires, and also, again, agriculture is relevant because we need to feed a lot of people, and the land is going to get degraded. Land degradation is an issue not only for countries that are without rain, but it's an issue even for countries where you have a good climate if the land is not taken care of. So smart ways to do agriculture and smart ways to protect the forest and to produce green energy probably is at the core of climate change.
Okay, and everything connected, right?
Yeah, everything is connected.
All right, we've covered a lot of topics. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
I think in my personal experience, what has been really relevant is the co-creation aspect. Co-creation means that when the decisions are taken, including everybody from the bottom, or including a dialogue with people, and so people understand better what you're talking about, get also a part in the change. The change is much more possible, is much more easier, rather than having policies that are only coming from the top down. Because people sometimes can only needs to be shown what they can do, maybe with a little bit of knowledge transfer and participation, and that makes everything better. So my suggestion would be really to learn to work more together.
Yeah, I think you can see in a lot of sort of research projects, a lot of institutions starting to go in that direction. So it's great to hear you say that. So Simona Castaldi, thank you so much for sharing your wealth of insights with us, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.